Well, welcome back to the agenda with your Missoula County Commissioners. I'm Commissioner Dave Strohmeyer. I am joined by fellow Commissioner and friend Josh Slotnick. Commissioner Vero is out of town today attending a training session, but we are delighted today to have with us Laura Millen, the director of the Missoula Art Museum, which, by the way, is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, it's great to have
Thank
you,
you, Josh.
Yeah, you bet. So when I was thinking about prepping for this, I was wondering if you wouldn't mind starting by telling us the story on how we ended up with the MAM.
Yeah.
When if a person's walking by, it's obvious there's this glorious old building of Carnegie Library, and now this equally glorious addition. How did we go from having a Carnegie Library to having a MAM?
It kind of started with a festival. The Missoula Festival of the Arts, which began in 1973 and was a massive interdisciplinary, cooperative, collaborative effort of the whole entire town and ran for several days, featuring the literary arts, music, dance, visual art, all together now. And it was so successful that it ran for 4 years, I believe. The last year was 1975. And by then, so the library moved out in 1971 to the, at that time, new building on Main Street.
So it was Missoula's public library.
Oh, yeah.
Up until
1903.
Okay.
It was built
1903 to 1975.
as a single story. And then in 1913, just, a few years later, they added the second story because it was bursting at the seams. And free public library served Missoula till 1971, at which time the city built the new building on Main, which has now been replaced, of course, on Front Street. And so it sat empty. One of the things that happened during that time was three artists, enterprising women artists,
Of course.
who couldn't get the attention or respect of the curator up at the university, decided to mount their own exhibit in the empty Carnegie Library building.
Did they seek permission or did they just do it?
I have the feeling they kind of just did it.
All right.
It happened.
And that was Leela Audio, Nancy Erickson, and Dana Boussard.
Yeah, just no names.
And they were all working in soft sculpture.
Wow.
And they had presented their idea of showing together to the university and were roundly rejected. And so we have a show up right now called Women's Work, and it's work from that exhibit by the three of them on view at MAM.
Yeah, now
really
immortal.
fun.
Yeah.
So showing what a beautiful space it would be for a museum, and it really was a grassroots movement that grew out of that festival. At the time, George Turman was mayor, and Kay Turman was one of those advocating for a museum. So she secured the permission to use the building as a museum. And then the county commissioners were lobbied by the same group, which included Kay Turman, but also, interestingly, Julia Gregory, former mayor of Missoula.
Oh, interesting.
First and only until now.
Okay.
And she served just one term, but she was a real art lover, a real Western art lover, actually. I interviewed Kay Turman once about these early, this whole advocacy effort to start the museum. And Kay said, I worked the Democrats and Juliet worked the Republicans.
Perfect. So at the time this happened, was the building in good shape?
It was. The building just sat empty and waited. And there was I think a minor movement to tear it down and build a parking lot, believe it or not.
Ooh.
But Leela Audio was on hand to debate that with the city council.
So did the city own the building at the time?
Yes, then and now.
And so how did Missoula County get involved in the museum?
Through the mill levy.
Ooh, tell us the mill levy story. And the museum went from that small, beautiful Carnegie building to what it is now.
Yeah. So
footprint-wide.
back in the day, back when this lobbying effort was underway, the commissioners were lobbied to support the museum fiscally. And as I understand it, the first mill levy was split because the fort was trying to get off the ground too, the historic museum at Fort Missoula. And so I think the first mill levy for museums in Missoula was split between MAM and the fort. And then it went from there. We've enjoyed that funding, that bedrock of funding, ever since day one.
We want to come back to how the building got to its current size and footprint, besides just Missoula County playing a role with the mill levy. Was it just the commission itself unilaterally peeling off tax dollars for the museum back then. Did it actually go to the voters?
It never did.
It never
It's
did.
a permissive mill.
Okay.
Right? It always has been a permissive mill. But it did mean that it was the lion's share of our funding for a very long time.
Sure.
And we were county employees. We were an outside agency of Missoula County.
Wow.
So this is an important fact.
When did the shift happen?
So I became the director in 1990, and we started looking at development, how to develop the museum in various ways, develop the collection, importantly, develop the building, and develop our infrastructure of support. And it just seemed that, quite frankly, being a government agency was not a recipe for success in terms of attracting revenues, donations, and donations to collections. I remember when one individual said, "I will not leave my art to you as long as you're a government agency."
Interesting.
They thought we would use the art as paving material.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. So, but it was kind of an aha moment for me. I thought, okay. So started talking with the commissioners at the time about segueing and becoming an independent 501c3, which we weren't. We didn't have a 501c3.
Did you guys have a friends group then? Or
We did have a friends group that operated underneath the rubric of the Missoula Museum of the Arts Foundation.
Okay.
So in 1995, this became a reality. We parted from the county with an agreement that we would continue to be the caretaker of the county collection, because up to that point, everything we collected was Missoula County property.
If I understand it right, the art that's at the museum that's in total, part of it is owned by the county.
That's right.
But part of it isn't.
That's right.
So-
There's one collection, but there's two collections.
There's two collections
So
within one collection.
Is it the case that everything pre 1995
Belonged to the county?
is today the Missoula County
Correct.
collection?
And is everything post 1995 not the county?
Correct.
Describe to us what is in the pre 1995 or 1995 and earlier collection that is the Missoula County collection. Is part of it what is being displayed in the courthouse right now?
Yes. Although when we started that Art in Public Places program with our collection, we used to just bring objects over here that were in the county collection. And then we thought, oh, heck, why draw that line?
Yeah.
Yeah. And because, of course, now we've grown quite a ways beyond the county collection, and so we don't make that distinction.
How about the Edward Paxson murals? Are those separate?
Are not part of the collection.
They are not
kind
part of the
endemic
collection.
to the courthouse.
They are, yes, in the ownership of Missoula County.
So at this point, is the county's collection much smaller than the general collection?
Yeah.
So big transformation in MAM was going from the old Carnegie building to the glorious building you have right now. When did that happen, and how did it happen?
Okay, so in 1995, as I say, when we essentially left the county and became an independent nonprofit, we started building steps toward the expansion that we were envisioning. And it took quite a bit of time to one of the things we did right away actually was bring in a preservation architect to study the
Great.
building. And they found that it was so solid.
Oh,
Yeah, so well built and worth keeping. So we approached the city, first of all, for support, because the city is, remember, still the owner of the building, and asked the city to come up with the first $1 million of support for the expansion. And that way we figured we could raise it from there. And by the way, the county commissioners gave us, in that early phase, $75,000 to help us with an initial architectural. May have paid for that preservation architect and an initial sketch that we could just be using to promote
Great.
the concept. Very helpful. Anyway, long story short, we thought we could do it for about $2.5 million, and it became about $5.5 million.
and this was in
But
95?
we completed it in 2006. So,
Wow. So it was phased.
yeah, it was a long process. By about 2000, we were actively working on it, in terms of building support, and it took a while.
Wow. And so recently you just had your latest annual auction. And
Yes.
if I heard right, you guys raised a record amount of money?
We did.
Congratulations.
We netted $235,000.
It was. I was at the event. It was
Yeah.
pretty amazing.
I went the year before. I wasn't able to go this year. But I'm thinking about if they had known, what would those three women who did the guerrilla art exhibit and later became immortal artists in their own right? Well, imagine what would they have thought if someone had told them, just wait a few decades.
Yeah.
And
Right.
the MAM's going to bring in more than $200,000 in a night. And people as illustrious as my friend Dave Strohmeyer will be in audience, dressed for the evening.
Well, what was fun about it, and Dave can attest, we made a MAM 50 hat. Every attendee got a hat. There was a hat at each place setting.
Like a baseball cap?
Yes.
Yeah, trucker's cap.
Great.
Black with gold letters, MAM 50.
Nice.
And so my speech was really apropos of this conversation, talking about our founders and the wisdom of our founders to involve the county and the city and our community in the founding of this institution, and that we still have the support of all of those and more today. So I made a series of toasts, taking my hat off each time, including one to the county commissioners. And Dave Strohmeyer is with us tonight.
That's great.
Hats off to Dave and the county commission.
That's super great.
No, thank you.
And all 500 people in the room were taking their hats off with me. It was so much fun.
Well done. Well done. So now MAM is on the cusp of another really, really big transition. You were the person that shepherded this organization from being a small project of the county to being this beloved and established nonprofit that's literally part of the cultural fabric of our community, which is a fantastic legacy, Lauren. Congratulations. So looking back and looking forward, what are you thinking these days? I mean, you're right on this on this edge, and you're going to leave this organization that really has never existed in a robust way without you.
Right.
Yes, I can hear the trepidation. Your baby.
Kind of my baby.
Yeah. So what's going on in your head these days?
Well, and just to add to that, when folks think of the MAM, they might gravitate towards a bricks and mortar footprint here, just within spitting distance of our office. But it's more than that. There's programming involved, and so that's part of what you have helped build and this transition also.
Yes, yeah. And that's why I take so much inspiration from the Festival of the Arts in the early 70s, because I like to think that we're still that community-based, multidisciplinary institution. We do poetry, we do music, we occasionally do dance, and we have a really robust educational program that serves all ages and is free.
So what are you thinking these days? What's in your head and your heart on this moment?
My feeling is that there's a point where new leadership is needed.
For sure.
And that's the main reason I'm moving on, quite honestly.
What do you want to make sure continues, and what sorts of things are you okay with letting evolution do what it does?
Well, I hope that MAM stays free and embracing of our community, really responsive to our community's needs. And I hope that we maintain excellent relations with Indigenous artists and Indigenous people, because that's been a big, important focus.
Yeah. What are areas you feel like ripe for evolution?
I think that the hallmark of MAM has been to bring in new art. We're a contemporary art museum, and we have been from the very get-go. And I think that's another important part of our roots, because when you think about what was happening in 1975 in art in Montana, and the biggest show absolutely in Montana would be the Charlie Russell Museum and their annual auction and the sensational sales and popularity of Western art. Contemporary Art Museum was an outlier and I think has built its audience and support slowly but surely. But, what's exciting is that we're always presenting fresh, new ideas and challenging art. And I think that I can't ever pick a favorite, because basically my favorite is the next one.
That's a good segue to another question I had, because we're talking a lot about the MAM and its history has been, where it might go as an institution in the future. But I'd like to step back just for a moment to talk about the arts. In general, this is a point in our nation's history and history globally where it seems like if ever there was a need for the arts and cultural engagement, it's now. And so oftentimes I hear apologists for the arts focus on its economic benefits.
Right.
While without a doubt, there are great and some might be amazed at how much economic benefit the arts bring to a community such as Missoula. But when you were just talking about challenging understandings of our world and such, that's going to something very deep and visceral in the human experience. So maybe talk a little bit about just your thoughts about the role of arts in our current moment in time.
Yeah, it is going to be a challenging time. I think we're all going to be in the business of defending civic society, not just the arts. And I did bring a quote that I wanted to share. It's from 1941, and this came from a resolution of the Association of Art Museum Directors, of which I'm a member. If in times of peace our museums and art galleries are important to the community, in times of war or turbulence, they are doubly valuable. For when the petty and the trivial fall away, and we are face to face with the final and lasting values, we as Americans must summon to our defense all our intellectual and spiritual resources. We must guard jealously all we have inherited from the long past, all we are capable of creating in a trying present, and all we are determined to preserve in an unseeable future.
Wow,
1941.
I like
Powerful.
that. I like that. Yeah, just think about arts and history just for a moment.
Yeah.
Think about the 1930s when our federal government paid artists to really do storytelling, maybe and inspire general empathy and a we're in this together feeling between people in rural and urban areas in an era of super scarce resources. So just thinking of a time when our federal government was paying artists to tell stories, writing plays, doing ceramics, teaching art, to where we are right now, where it feels like our federal government is in retrenchment from all things, the urge to grow smaller. Where does an art museum fit into this?
MAM has stayed really true to its roots in a lot of ways, including the fact that we're mostly supported by our community and the larger community of philanthropy in America, which I hope will continue to come to our rescue in this moment. But we don't have a great dependency on federal funds. It's staying relevant, which is in our mission, actually, is to present work that is relevant to our community. I mean, as long as we are relevant to our audience and can earn the support through our educational programming and our exhibits, hopefully the support will continue.
Yeah.
And even though your experience at the MAM, your involvement spans decades, are there any particular vignettes or stories or encounters with individuals, artists or otherwise, that have stuck with you over the years?
Maybe some things that feel really emblematic of the MAM.
My relationship and our relationship with Jean Quick-to-See Smith,
Whose
is
artwork
probably
we have displayed over in the
wall.
courthouse.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep, and who passed away in January at the age of 85. But before she died, she designed a sculpture for MAM and for Missoula that is being fabricated and will be installed in front of the Carnegie Library this summer.
Outside.
Pretty exciting.
An outdoor sculpture.
An outdoor sculpture.
Oh, fantastic.
It's a stack of coyote figures, very colorful. And the title is basically Coyote Sees in All Directions.
Oh, wow.
So she and I got to know each other in the mid or early 90s and became good friends. And she was very excited when she found me here as the museum director. And we started plotting and scheming to start a collection of Native art. And then eventually, about 10 years later, that translated into the devoted gallery space when we did the addition, and has continued. She considers this home, and so it's been very important to her to have her work preserved here. But more than that, to have all Native artists feel welcomed and embraced here and be given a voice here.
That's fantastic.
So it's I think it is a fabulous legacy.
Absolutely.
So what piece of advice would you give to the new director who has yet to be hired? We don't know who this person is.
Yeah,
but
the
if you're
$1 million question.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. What would you
My
say?
board asked that question too.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
I think maintaining our values, which I do think have served us well and have served Missoula well, and embracing artists and really supporting artists, giving artists a lot of latitude to make new work and express themselves. And I think what's important too is for MAM to be active and using its voice as a real community player, partnering with other organizations, caring about really the whole state of arts infrastructure.
So MAM needs to continue to look out, not just
Yep.
in.
We've been very active with our statewide aid or membership organization, and I think that's really important. And here in town, same thing. Really important to maintain a collaborative relationship with the museum on campus and all of the arts in Missoula, be a community player and concerned with the well-being of our whole town.
Are there ways in which members of the community and our listening public can get involved with the MAM if they so feel like they are inclined?
Yes, of course, they need to visit And it's really easy to do that.
And it's free.
Free admission every day. But I would also really encourage membership, even though membership isn't required for entry. It certainly supports the bottom line.
What does membership look like? What do you get for being a member?
One of the best things you get is reciprocal membership to other museums.
Whoa.
We belong to about 4 or 5 different reciprocal organizations nationally. And so depending on your level of membership, you get one or maybe multiple other membership groups that your card will
What are some of
get
the
you
other
to.
museums?
Oh gosh, I mean, there's
a big list.
I'd say about 1,000 of them.
Oh,
1,000 of them.
Altogether. Like the biggest group is called the North American Museum Reciprocal Organization, and there's just 650 in that one alone.
Wow.
And then there's another one called Rome, and
So if you join MAM, you get to go to lots of museums when you travel.
are there any in New York City?
yes.
Jeez, I was just there.
Is the Nelson part of this in Kansas City? Do you know?
I'd have to look, but probably between one and another, one of the most exclusive is just modern and contemporary museums. There's only about 50 of them in the country, and you do have to be a member, I think, at the $500 level, maybe something like that. But
So there's levels of membership.
there's
too.
levels
there's
of
a
membership.
place for everybody.
Definitely. I might just give a little plug to a campaign that's underway at MAM this year. In my last year as director, we're calling Laura's Legacy, and
All right.
we're raising funds to really finish this year strong and also lay an important welcome mat to the new director with some operating funds so that things will go smoothly.
Great.
Yeah.
Great.
You know, one other question that came to mind when we were talking about free admission.
Yeah.
When did that happen? When did that transition happen here?
Always been free.
It's always been free.
Always.
Love it.
Excellent, because I think we've experienced this with, say, our bus service in town,
Right.
or the fairgrounds, where
Right.
there was a fee charge at one point, and
Yeah.
then a great deal of anxiety in terms
Yeah.
of how are we going to make this transition. But it's been always been free.
Yeah, and I think that even the library must have had the problem, or like a public relations challenge, because I've seen a sign that was once over the Carnegie door that said free public library. You wouldn't even think you would need to advertise
Absolutely.
that.
Yeah.
But think about it, they were kind of still introducing the concept of library to the town.
Sure.
And to encourage people to try it, they had to put free up there on the masthead.
So are you telling me in 1997 when I visited the MAM, the person who took my money pocketed it?
Exactly. So,
yes, and I'm sure they got. What do you think they got for that? Yeah, maybe.
So here's a long-winded history question for
Okay.
you. So I came to Missoula in the 80s as a teenager to go to college. I was 18. And Missoula was a radically different place then, as anybody who was here then could attest. I mean, pretty foul-smelling air. The Clark Fork had this coppery green glow to it. We were a lunch bucket, work-a-day mill town, not a place with soaring real estate values, and we weren't on anybody's vacation list. And at that same place was absolutely in love with art. Mm-hmm. It felt like I was as a kid, just in a hotbed, a little nest of art. Everything from fiction writing and poetry to music, avant-garde music and punk rock and cool music of all types, and sculpture and ceramics, all of it.
Yeah.
It was all right here. And it was so well supported. And now here we are, a completely different kind of place.
Yeah.
A boom town full of new investment and soaring real estate values and high rents and all the ills that come with prosperity and all the wonderful things that come with prosperity too. And we haven't changed in terms of our infatuation with art or putting art at the center. What do you make of that?
Yeah. Well, I think the university has a lot to do with it.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah,
that would
for
be
sure, for
the
sure.
feeder ground.
Great observation.
Yeah. And I know that we look at the history, for instance, of the art community or the growth of the art community. And we see, for instance, when the MFA program was added, and I think Nancy Erickson might have been the first woman to graduate with the MFA. She and her husband decided to stay. And that's what, started to really change, I think, the art community here. When artists who came to school here decided to make it their home.
Yeah.
So I think, particularly in the visual arts, that's kind of pretty direct effect. But, I think the same goes for, music, because the symphony, originally was actually, its home was the University of Montana before it became an independent nonprofit. And so, you just see over and over again how the university really
Oh, for sure. So many
nurtured.
people came here to go to college, fell in love with the place, and stayed.
Yep. I think it certainly has something to do with it's a wonderful place to live. It's a charming place. I remember Hal Frazier, who was such a supporter of our nonprofits and helping us build our infrastructure and get stronger, and certainly stood behind me with that expansion at First Security Bank. He had fallen in love with San Francisco and then came to Missoula and said, it just felt like a little San Francisco, and we're going to grow it, into a bigger and better community that loves the arts and
It worked.
has great hotels and,
It worked.
lighted bridges and,
Yeah. Well, congratulations for being part
Thank
of all
you.
that.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. It's been an honor.
Great. So we ask all our guests the same last question.
Okay.
So in the recent past, is there any tidbit of culture you came across that really stuck with you? I'm thinking of a podcast or a book or a play or a song, anything you've run into.
Or a piece of art.
A piece of art. Yeah, there you go. Thanks, Dave. Yeah. A chunk of culture you thought, well, that was worth remembering and now talking about.
Well, you're kind of getting into the territory of my least favorite question,
Oh, no.
which is, what is my favorite
Oh,
work
this is
of
just
art?
most compelling in the last
Yeah.
10 days. That's easy.
Or this morning.
Or this morning. Yeah.
Deborah Erling's book, which has taken me forever to get through.
Which one?
The most recent book, The Lost Journals of Sacagawea.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Great book.
Incredible.
Good. Well,
Not for sissies.
no. It's talk about challenging.
Well, Laura,
Yeah.
thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for all of your 35 years of service with the MAM and probably many years before that
Thank you.
as a lover of the arts also.
Yeah.
Thank
Thanks
you very
for all
much.
you've done for our community.
And thank you for the support. The county's been a big part of it.
We are honored to do that.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Okay.
We'll catch you next time. Thanks for listening to The Agenda. If you enjoy these conversations, it would mean a lot if you'd rate and review the show on whichever podcast app you use.
And if you know a friend who would like to keep up with what's happening in local government, be sure to recommend this podcast to them.
The Agenda with the Missoula County Commissioners is made possible with support from Missoula Community Access Television, better known as MCAT, and our staff in the Missoula County Communications Division.
If you have a question or a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, email it to communications@missoulacounty.us.
To find out other ways to stay up to date with what's happening in Missoula County, go to missoula.co/county updates.
Thanks for listening.